So, this is our second installment of our discussions on marriages. And so last week we asked about what causes divorce. Let me ask this question. Ladies, what do you wish your husband knew about ladies? That's not a rhetorical question. Pardon? That they're always right. And your answer to that is yes, ma'am. I was in a class today, and the lady from the vet center was wanting to do some skits to show how vets with post-traumatic stress respond, but the person she works with wasn't there, so she asked me, could I help her improv a little bit? And I said, okay. She doesn't know my history. I said, do you want to be the vet, or you want me to be the vet? She goes, well, I don't know. I said, it's your class. I'm used to being told what to do. I've been married 37 years. And anyway, so what do you wish that men knew about women? Yes, Jennifer. The background information to stories is important. So be more patient when you listen, all right? So, I will sit down to eat deer steak, and I'll tell Jackie, hey, this is the deer. And she goes, let me guess. You walked out in the woods before daylight. You climbed in the tree in the dark. The sun came up, the deer walked out, and you killed it. Come to think of it, it's pretty thematic. Yes, that is exactly what happened. So, yeah, background details are important to ladies. What else? Go ahead and get your shots in, because I'm going to ask the men the same thing. Women are always right. Background details are important. I'm not endorsing these, I'm repeating them. So ladies, what do you wish men knew about ladies? Hints don't work. I think that's the other question. We hadn't asked that yet. We don't want things fixed. We just want to be listened to, or vent, or express our emotions. That's very cool. What else? This is your perspective. It doesn't have to be clinically provable, by the way. We just need to get some dialogue. So what do men wish women knew about men? Hints don't work. Thank you, sir. Hints don't work. And that is true, by the way. Jackie was, when we were earlier, hey, so-and-so bought their wife a new watch. That's nice. What I was supposed to hear was, I want a new watch, and I want you to pick it out, and I want you to surprise me with it. And what I heard was, hey, Bob got her a new watch. You can't hide money. That's all I heard. Okay. What else? We are simple creatures, not mind readers, thus why hints don't work. I believe that those two go together. We really don't care where we eat. We really don't. As long as I don't have to cook it, as long as I don't have to clean up after it, I don't care where we eat. I don't know how many guys would agree with that, but I'm pretty much there with that. What else do you wish? Nothing is the truth, because there's a place in my mind where I don't think about anything. Men's mind, you've heard the comedian, men's minds are a series of little boxes. And those boxes are separated. They don't touch, they don't overlap. There's actually a book, Men Are Waffles, Women Are Spaghetti. And it says that, you take a waffle, which is square, out of a box, which is square. You put it in a microwave, which is square. You heat it up, and you sit down and watch a TV that is square. So we have a little box. When I'm in my TV box, I'm not in my talking box. When I'm looking in my cell phone box, I'm not in my listening box. When I'm in my driving box, I'm not in my talking box. And there is a box in the center of my brain that is absolutely empty. And it is my favorite box. Because I could go into my box where nothing is there, and I go. And when you ask me, what am I thinking? I go, nothing. And it's the truth. I can be occupied for hours That's why I can climb a tree and sit and just wait on a suicidal deer to walk by. Because I don't have to be occupied with. Now, women, their minds are like a piece of spaghetti or a ball of yarn, and you pull this over here, and it affects 900 other things over there. But nothing is really the truth. I can think about nothing. What'd you do all day? Nothing. You can believe that if you left me home alone for a weekend and went to ladies' retreat. What'd you do in the house? That would be nothing. Me and the dog are going to hunt and watch TV. That's all we're going to do while she's gone, all right? What else do you wish women knew about men? Okay, we're not good multitaskers. We need time to change gears and go between boxes. Women always complain that my husband gets irritated when he walks in from work and I ask him to do something immediately. And men complain that I walk in from work and I get bombarded with stuff. Okay? We're not multitaskers. We need transition time. Hey, you tell your toddlers in 5 minutes we need that too. I'm just telling you, we're complicated toddlers. All right? What else? We desire respect over love. Did you know that? Women desire love over respect, I think. But men had much rather be admired and respected than the touchy-feely stuff. Anything else that you wish men knew about women or women knew about men? Wow. Just because you told me and I responded to it doesn't mean I heard it. Okay? Yes. That's super, super important. You know, me and Jackie were talking about something one day. She goes, I thought you got paid to listen. I go, no, baby, I get paid to pay attention. and she said she was unhappy. She said, like, I don't listen and something else, but I don't remember. That's what the guy said. Somebody raised their hand. Yes. Yeah, we're in this box over here. You're over here. I'm not over there yet. You're trying to have that conversation. Okay? Now, none of those are deal breakers, but you'll be surprised at the number of times couples come into the office and they feel unheard, misunderstood, or rejected. And that's a powerful statement that 70% of our emotional communication is unheard, misunderstood, and rejected. And so if you flip that and say, hey, my job when I'm talking to my spouse is to make sure that she feels heard, that she feels understood, and that I can accept that she has the right to have that point of view, whether I agree with it or not. And attuning to someone is not necessarily endorsing them. It's letting them know, I get how you feel about that. And when women feel understood, they feel accepted, and there's a level of closeness. Everybody get that? So let's read a couple of Bible passages that have nothing to do with marriage. And then we'll carry on. Go to John chapter 1. And I was tempted to call it 1 John. We're trying to write a skit for SWAT where you tell a kid, turn to 1 John. He turns to the Gospel of John. No, I said 1 John. Well, that's the first John I came to. And so we're going to try to do who's on first and try to work something out with that. John chapter 1, verse, to get the context, chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. If you understand what it means that the definite article is not always present, you have this problem that you do with the name of God. In the beginning was the Word was with God, God's personal name, Tom Theon in Greek. But there's no definite article, a nominative, an ablative, a genitive, or a possessive. It's just the word for God. So does that mean that the Word was a deity? Does it mean that the Word was a God? Or does it mean that the Word was God stuff? So you've got this creature, this entity that exists as God, but separate from God, but the same as God. Everybody got that? Yes, no? Okay, go back to the water illustration. Liquid water, H2O. Frozen water, H2O. Vaporous, water vapor, H2O. Water, water, water. Absolutely the same substance, three different manifestations. Okay, now there's a false doctrine called modalism that said God can only exist in one form at the same time. That's not true. Okay, you can walk in the woods in the wintertime and there's a layer of ice on the creek, there's water running under the ice, and there's mist coming off the creek. You got solid, liquid, and gas at the same time in the same place. So you have God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit. So when we start talking about this thing called the Logos, it's God. And there's some discussion about that, but look at John chapter 1, verse 14. Somebody read that for me. So you've got this entity, this personage that is God, and God transforms, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us, dwelt among us. In Greek, it's a verb, and it's the verb form of tabernacle. The word tabernacled among us, which I think is fun to say, by the way. But what is a tabernacle? A tent. God came tent camping. God left whatever it was to be God, whatever that existence is in a total spiritual state, and put on a tent. The Word became flesh and tented with us. That's like going camping and somebody drives up in an RV. That's different. You get out and put your little tents up. Okay? What does it mean to you that God wore a tent like you're wearing? Are there any implications to do with that? Okay, so the body is just a vehicle that carries the soul. We should put less importance on this than we do the other part. Okay, what else are those implications? Okay, so there's a difference in the command staff and the guy who's in the trenches with you. I like that. So God wore what you're wearing, and it could be affected by heat, cold, hunger, loneliness. If you got anxiety, your sweat came out like blood. If they beat you with a whip, it hurt. If they nailed you on a cross, you'd die. That's a pretty good level of understanding. Or if you were sad, you cried, John 11:35. Or if you had empathy for the people who were crying, John 11:35. My soul is troubled, exceedingly troubled, even to the point of death. That's the Son of God saying, I'm worried to death. I'm scared to death. Now, a couple of things that beg the question. Is it a sin to be worried? Is it a sin to be anxious? The Son of God was. But he didn't let the anxiety control him. Be anxious over nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, let your request be made known to God. When Jesus was the intense sorrow in the garden, what did he do? He prayed to God. So he understands, there's empathy, there's a connection. In fact, go to Hebrews chapter 4. Start at verse 14. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. Why? For, or because, we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but in every way was tempted just as we are, yet he did not sin. So then we can approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace in our help of need, in our time of need. Every priest is selected from among the people and is appointed to represent the people in matters related to God. They offer gifts and sacrifices for sins. He is able to gently deal with those who are ignorant and are going astray, since he himself is subject to weakness. When the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, what happened to the relationship between God and people? Everybody knows what it's like to live in a tent. So if I'm going to take, how did God fundamentally change the dynamic between deity and flesh? What did deity do? What did you say, Jackie? He came to us, Ben? Okay, brought us together on the same level. So now, if I take that strategy, the most wise, the most powerful, the omniscient being, you don't think God has the mental capacity to say, I know what it's like to be a person? Intellectually, can God do that? But God chose to do it experientially. We have a high priest who understands ignorance and people with weaknesses. How does he understand it? He walked around in one of these for 33 years, we assume. Okay? We come up to that number because a priest could not start his ministry as a priest till he was 30. A rabbi couldn't start his ministry till he was 30. It is written that Jesus began his personal ministry at age 30. We see him at 3 Passovers. Passover is an annual feast. Assuming we don't skip some in the Gospels, you got age 30 and 3 annual feasts. 33 years old is why we get the age of Jesus when he died. And his experience as a person for 33 years exposed him to type and kind of every circumstance you can experience as a person. And therefore he can empathize, not sympathize, but empathize with our weaknesses. God went from this to this. Courtney Armstrong will call it attunement. John Gottman will call it attunement. Courtney will call it alignment. Some people will call it love languages. Some people will call it love mapping. So all of a sudden, understanding my spouse's world from their point of view is almost godly. Because that's how God dealt with me. He knows what it's like to be hungry, tired, sad, depressed, anxious, angry, insecure. All those things God understands. And because of that understanding, my relationship with him is with a guy in the trenches, not a guy in the command staff. Does that make sense? So if we're going to divorce-proof our marriages, it's going to be from a standpoint of coming to an understanding of the needs that our spouses have. Okay? Now, is it going to shock anybody if I tell you that men and women have different needs? Say it ain't so. We ask a simple question, what do you wish men knew about women? What do you wish women knew about men? And do you see the difference in the answers? And those answers come from the fact that we think, hey, they don't really understand us. So if you go to, and please understand that if you quote Willard Hartley, he wrote the book, His Needs, Her Needs. In order to write his book, he surveyed 10,000 people, 5,000 couples, and said, hey, let's talk about what you need out of a relationship. And they answered this question, and they came up with the top 5 needs of men and the top 5 needs of women. They're not necessarily ordinal, but they are in the top 5. Okay? So men's needs. Number 1, this is ordinal. Number 1 on the survey, men want sexual fulfillment. Is anybody in the room shocked by that? The average male between the ages of 13 and 23 has a thought about sex every 7 seconds. That's the average male. That's not that creepy kid in your youth group who wants to hug everybody. Get back on the bus, you little pervert. You know, he's the guy that walks around CYC with free hugs. You know, go sit down somewhere, all right? Somebody put duct tape on this kid's hands. Anyway, men get married, especially men who were trying to be pure in their dating relationships. Hey, when I get married, I'm going to have sex. And so men expect to be sexually active when they get married, okay? And we start lying about our sexuality or our sexual activity when we're old enough to go to the locker room. And men see themselves as sexual creatures. Number one fulfillment is sexual fulfillment. Number 2 on the man's list, recreational companionship. When you and your husband were dating, did you do stuff together? You would either play sports with him or go watch him play his sports. We're just like little boys. We don't really want your help. We want you to watch us do our thing. Okay? So you're riding the bass boat, you're riding a golf cart. You come over and you bring a plate of sandwiches while he's, I know she doesn't ride in your bass boat. Okay? It's not gospel. Calm down. All right? Jordan has some boundaries right here. You're not getting in my kayak, I'll tell you that right now. All right? But you participate in this guy's life. Number 3, men want an attractive spouse. We are visually drawn to you, and that's the way we're wired. Now, that doesn't mean that your 38-year-old body has to like your 18-year-old body. That doesn't mean you have to fit some dress size or some number on a scale. It doesn't mean you have to look like some cover on a magazine, but it does mean that you should be paying as much attention to presenting yourself for your husband as you did when you presented yourself to go on dates. Because when he came over to pick you up, guess what? You're not coming downstairs till you got on the right outfit. You're not coming downstairs till your hair's did. You're not coming downstairs till you got the right shoes. When I was dating, before I met Jackie, when I was dating, he was like, okay, if we went out more than twice, your third date was, hey, I'm picking you up early in the morning, no makeup, put your hair in a ponytail, wear a ball cap, we're going rock climbing and rappelling. First I'm going to check out whether or not you're scared of heights, and I want to see without makeup. I want to know the ugly truth. Okay? I just want to know this stuff, okay? Yes, I'm evil and shallow. Listen, beauty is skin deep. Ugly goes to the bone. So I just want to make sure what we're signing up for. Jackie was an athlete. I saw her play softball. I saw her play basketball. I saw her march in the band. I saw her ride a dirt bike. I knew what she looked like without makeup. I'd winter chicken dinner. Anyway, men want an attractive spouse. And it's not necessarily what you have, but what you do with what you have. He's never seen you without your hair done. He's never seen you without your makeup. He's never seen you without your nails done. And about 4 weeks into marriage, the terry cloth robe comes out and the fuzzy bunny slippers. That's a shock. Nobody's prepared for that. Okay? Be still, baby. I think I can shoot it off your back. My mother gave this to me. You know, you don't want to be there. Number 4 on the list, domestic support. Now, don't throw books at me. But the bottom line in the back of your lizard brain, men give lip service to, I've got a job, you've got a job. I've got a career, you've got a career. I make money, you make money. But in the back of that lizard brain, he assumes that you will do some things like his mother did. And there's nothing wrong with traditional roles as long as you understand that the traditional roles are okay. But men want, hey, domestic support. Now, I guess I kind of get that. If there's a bump in the night, who has to check on it? Well, you are a cop. You are. You leave class now. All right, you're ruining my stuff. Normally, okay, if there's a bump in the night, who has to check on it? Well, I do. Why? Because you're the guy. I'm in charge of all vermin and all bumps in the night. Jackie will go, Jonesy, and she pats me on my belly, which I hate. Jonesy, what? I heard something. I didn't hear anything. I heard something. I didn't hear anything. I think something's in the house. You got a pistol right there by your bed. Go check it. You know how to clear a house. But it woke me up. Oh, so I need to find out what woke me up. Done. I roll back up. But guess what? I got to get up, get the Trigicon, turn it on, ease through the house with the night sights. Okay? Now, unsolicited advice. If you get up and go check for bumps in the night, don't take sporting equipment. Don't carry a ball bat, a tennis racket, or a golf club. Take something that you can do. What do you expect to find? Some dude in your living room with a ball? Hey! Thought I'd come throw a few innings with you. No, take something that'll handle it when you go. But I have to do it because I'm the guy. Well, there's some things I expect she's going to do right, wrong, or indifferent because she's a girl and my mom did it. Doesn't mean it's right, but there's an expectation of it. And then the fifth thing he needs is admiration. And that's really, really strange to me. But you look at the life of David when his wife Michal insults him in public, or insults him in private after he's been praised in public, he cuts off relations with her. It says, and Michal went to her grave childless. This is a girl that David fought for in hand-to-hand combat. And when he comes home from bringing the Ark of the Covenant back into Jerusalem, she meets him on the porch. Oh, how glorious was the king of Israel today, uncovering himself like one of the base fellows. And he says, first of all, when God chose me to be king, he could have picked somebody with your last name. He didn't. So God chose me above your clan. And you think I made a show today, wait till Friday comes. Well, you think the handmaidens got a show today, wait. And then they never produced children from that union, which probably means they quit having sex. So that's what the guy needs. Play with me, look good for me, clean up after me, and tell me I'm great. Okay. Now, if you can't do that, you shouldn't even have pets, much less children. We're simple. We're easy to take care of. We're not super complicated. What causes problems and what creates divorces is we think that because we're that simple, you're that simple. And there's this little convoluted mess over here. Her number one need is affection. And by affection, we don't mean touching. Affection is that attunement. I know your world and I anticipate it. Mind reading and hint getting. Okay? And sometimes we send messages to our wives and we think we're communicating one thing and we're communicating something else. With a little bit of concentration, I can tell you my speaking schedule out to 2025. I know when deer season opens. I know when rabbit season opens. I know when squirrel season opens. I know when the next PGF's going to air. I know when the next PGF's going to be filmed. I know all these things about my schedule. But I forget the trash comes on Monday. What have I told her? I can keep up with all these things because they're what? And this is not. But it's important to her, and when it's not important to me, she's not important. You know, I built that monstrosity in my backyard called Fort Gunner. Did all the technical stuff with the cables, built a 160-foot zip line, suspended a giant slide in midair with one cable, and the kitchen sink drips for 6 months. Guess what I've told her? I can do this cool, wonderful stuff. That's not a big deal. So she wants affection, and affection is not necessarily what we think of as affection as always touching. But as men, our number one thing is, we need to be sexually active, physical touch, and we need to show her some affection, so we end up groping them. They don't appreciate that, all right? And so attuning to this is something that's important to her. Whether it's, do we visit my parents at Thanksgiving? Do we visit my parents at Christmas? What kind of time do you spend with the children? Do you know what's important to her, and do you address it? So her number one need is affection. Her number two need is conversation. Because when you were dating and she was running around with you, what did you do? You talked. and talked, and you told them your hopes and your dreams and your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses, and they felt like that they knew you. They saw inside your heart. They just didn't hear academic information or intellectual information. They heard your hopes, your dreams, and your fears, and you told her things you've never told another living human being. Am I wrong? And they go home and tell their mother, or they go home and tell their friends, I met the most wonderful guy, we can talk about anything. The third thing she needs from you is openness and honesty. Now, what does that mean? When you talk to her, you tell her the truth. You tell her the truth about where you go, about what you do, about what you like, about what you don't like, about what you spend, about what you don't spend, who your friends are on Facebook. Because a woman can't live with a man she can't trust. And I mean, if I see 100 couples this year, and all 100 of them, the man's been guilty of an affair, one out of 100 will say, I can't believe he had sex with her. 99 of those women will say, I can't believe he lied to me. He said she didn't mean anything to him. She was just a friend from work. They said they were going to be here and they went there. It's the lack of the ability to trust that destroys a relationship. And just, we'll maybe talk about it later. But if you're spending too much time texting, Instagramming, or just visiting at the office with a female, and you and the third person know more about you and your wife than you and your wife know about the third person, you get an inverse in intimacy. And when there's an inverse in intimacy, if you add deception, secrecy, or lying to that, that's considered infidelity. Now, for biblical purposes, it's not consummated infidelity, but it's still an affair because you've had an inverse in intimacy and you've replaced your wife with somebody else. And so when you say, no, we don't talk, and there's 900 text messages, we don't touch, well, I hugged her. Oh, no, well, we kissed once. You're having sex. That's the truth. And so when you get into that, and when a woman finds out, hey, I'm with a guy and I can't trust him, that almost is debilitating for their ability to stay with you as a spouse. And it's not the affair, it's the lack of trust. And you think about it, she left her home, she left her last name, she left her friends, all those things to follow you on your adventure, and you can't be open and honest. Her fourth need is financial security. In the back of her mind, now she has a job and you have a job, you have a career, she has a career, you're providing things, she's providing things, but in the back of her mind, there's an assumption that you're willing to do whatever it takes to take care of her like her dad took care of her. Because regardless of your dual career family, she thinks you're the breadwinner. And gentlemen, in this day and age, younger generation guys, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. It doesn't matter what you have to do. You provide for your family. And it doesn't have to be your dream job. It just has to be a job. It doesn't have to be one full-time job. It can be 3 as long as you're fulfilling to love, honor, cherish, and provide for. And guys that won't work to feed their families and guys that won't work hard to feed their families lose respect. You lose the affection. It goes away. And then the fifth thing that she needs is family commitment. For this reason, a man will leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife, and the two shall become one. And she's got to know explicitly and implicitly that when push comes to shove, if you've got to draw a circle around only 2 people on the planet, it'll be you and her in that circle. Period. Spouse comes before kids. Spouse comes before career. Family comes before friends. Spiritual things come before material things. And so when you look at the relationship between a husband and wife, these are her needs. These are his needs. Now, we could play this game. This is not quid pro quo. This is not if you do this, they'll do that. When the people do the Willard Harley seminars, they accidentally or inadvertently teach it as quid pro quo. This is not about you teaching your wife what your needs are. This is you understanding what your spouse's needs are. and attuning to them whether they do or not. This is not about you didn't do this, I don't have to do this. But what happens when couples divorce is one of these things goes missing. And everything on this hand affects something on this hand. And you get catastrophic system failure. So I could say, pick right hand or left hand. Somebody pick a hand. Right or left? Left. Pick a number between 1 and 5. 1, 2, 3. This is an attractive spouse. So she quits doing what she can to be attractive for you. As a guy who resents that, you're going to quit showing her affection, which is an attempt to have sex. And then all of a sudden, because she doesn't admire you, you're not going to communicate with her. And because you don't communicate with her, you guys aren't going to do anything together. And when you don't do anything together, there's no communication. She doesn't feel like she's having any support, and there's no reason to do this stuff. And then all of a sudden, you end up with financial security and a person who cleans house. How many marriages do you know they're in trouble? That's what it looks like. The guy works and she's the maid. I don't know what you're unhappy about. I don't beat you and run around on you. You can play that game all night. One of these will affect one of these, and it typically ends up in catastrophic system failure. And in a few rare cases, he's not bringing home any money. He's not providing financial security. But for the most part, when marriages get in trouble, it's an effect, a trickle-down effect of one of these areas not being met. And so if you want to divorce-proof your marriage, it's important to understand your spouse's world from their perspective. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to understand it. You don't even have to think it's rational. You just got to address it. It's important to you because it's important to them, which by default makes them important to you. Okay? Questions, comments, things we can add to or take from? Okay, First Peter. All right, okay. So 1 Peter chapter 3, the very last part of this section on marriages, verse 7. Husbands, in the same way, dwell with your wife with understanding. New International Version says, be considerate as you live with your wives. So what Peter says is, you've got to adopt a position where you have this understanding about your spouse. Now, the fact that he said in the same way goes back to when he tells the wives, you treat your husband with respect. You don't nag him, but you have a quiet and gentle and chaste personality, because that's very valuable in the sight of God. And not only is it valuable in God's sight, it's what men need to be motivated. And so there's his needs, her needs. You can read the book by Willard Harley. I highly recommend, if you're struggling a little bit as a couple, you take that test. It's in the back of the book, and you can kind of go, oh, these are some things I'm not doing. Now, everybody's not going to agree on that top 5, but it's pretty close. And you may order them differently, but those are super huge important things. Now, this is not, if I do this, you'll do that. It's, I do this because I know you need it. It has nothing to do with how you respond to it. And people who are immature and keeping score, when one of these things goes away, one of these things go away. That's not the way a healthy marriage works anyway. All right, thank you guys for coming. We'll see you next Wednesday, Lord willing.